indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Valentine, here. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Leary. Here. Ms. Martin.
Here.
Mayor Caulfield.
Here.
Mr. Conway. Here. Ms. Doherty.
Present.
7 present.
At this point in time, on the agenda, as the mayor of the city, it does me great pleasure to introduce our screening committee. And once I introduce everyone, I would appreciate if the school committee would give them a round of applause, not only for their time, but their expertise and their willingness to help us select the next superintendent of schools. First person from the Citywide Parents Council, Anita Downs. Citywide Parents Council, Teresa Colonna. From the Lowell Plan, James Conway. He is not present this evening, but he is going to offer immense talents to the screening commission. The Lowell Chamber of Commerce, Jean Osborne. University Mass Lowell, and I believe Dr. Pearson is not here this evening, but Jackie Maloney is representing UMass Lowell. Thank you, Jackie. The Middlesex Community College designee is Dr. Molly Sheehy. United Teachers of Lowell, UTL President Paul Judges. The UTL teacher Kathleen McLaughlin. Former Assistant Superintendent of Schools Ted Rorak. Principal Linda Lee, the Shaughnessy School. Karen Fredericks from Community Teamwork Incorporated. Cindy McAndrews from the SPED PAC Parents. Carla Correa Berg from LSAA, social worker. And my colleague, former colleague, and former mayor of the city of Lowell, Eileen Donohue. Please give them a round of applause, please. At this point in time, is there anyone who would like to address the screening committee at this point in time? If not, we'll wait for the evening to move along. We can accept the minutes of the past meeting. Moved for approval to accept and place on file.
Move approval, Your Honor.
By Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Fattacani. All in favor?
Aye.
Accepting those minutes signify by saying aye. Minutes are accepted and adopted. We also have to accept the special meeting of January 23rd. Moved to approve by Ms. Martin. Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Minutes are accepted. We have memorials by Regina Fattacani. First one is William Thompson McAuliffe, brother of Carol Madden, Special Education Evaluation Team Chairperson. Eric Pick, husband of Myrma Pick, Special Education Occupational Therapist. And Peter Rogers, husband of Donna Rogers, teacher at the Rogers School. Can we all stand in darkened chambers, please? Thank you. May they rest in peace. Permission to enter?
Yes. Several contracts. They're all amendments to existing contracts to adjust for numbers of students or changes in services for youngsters who are being educated out of the district at schools because within the district we can't meet the needs of their special education plans. Latham Center Incorporated, $125,523 to amend the existing contract for 2 students. Merrimack Education Center, $71,215 to amend the contract involving 8 students. The Protestant Guild for Human Services, $169,025 to amend the contract affecting 3 students. And the town of Methuen, $28,435 to provide for the out-of-district additional costs for 4 students. All of these will be paid through the school department budget, the special education tuition account. And we are within budget.
Any discussion on these contracts?
Move approval, Your Honor.
Move approval by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Fattacani. Roll call.
Ms. Fattacante?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Unfinished business? Any unfinished business? Madam Superintendent? No unfinished business. The next agenda item is public participation. Is there anyone? Please come to the microphone. Give us your name, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, school committee members, and Superintendent Bayer. My name is Julie Walsh. I live at 114 Burnside Street. I'm here tonight regarding the motion to televise Lowell High School subcommittee meetings. When my children first entered the public school system, it was easy to be involved in their schools. In elementary school, your main contact is one classroom teacher. The principal was always around, and so the chain of command was visible. Communication between school and home was simple, and it happened often. It gets a bit tougher in middle school, where the school is larger, there are twice as many students, and every year it seems there is yet another teacher added to your student's life. But again, the principal is around, and there is a lot of communication between home and school, so it's not as scary. Then comes high school. I speak with experience when I tell you that sending your child into the labyrinth that is Lowell High School is formidable, not just for the parents, but for the students. You go from middle school, where there are 800 to 900 students, to high school with a population of 3,700. Suddenly, there are several different teachers, lettered houses with housemasters, guidance counselors, main office staff. The list goes on. Just try calling the main phone number of the high school someday and listen to all the voicemail choices you have before you can get anywhere close to someone who can help you. And chances are you made the wrong choice and have to be sent somewhere else anyway. It is overwhelming, even for someone like me who has been an active member, an active volunteer in the school system for years. Televising the subcommittee meetings is a chance to clear up some of that confusion. While these meetings are open to the public currently, because of reasons like job schedules, childcare, and other obligations, not everyone is able to attend. Speaking as a member of the Citywide Parent Council, I can attest to the power of televised meetings. I wish I had $1 for every time someone stopped me in the supermarket and said, "Hey, I saw you on TV the other day." The TV is a powerful tool that all our government groups should take advantage of. In addition, these meetings could be used as a forum for communication. Communication between the high school and home is almost non-existent. Last week, for example, there was a lockdown held and a student arrested. I heard this information not from the administration, but from my 10th grader. And so you can imagine the kind of information I got from my 10th grader. I found out through my own investigation that the lockdown and the arrest were completely unrelated, but would prefer to have heard something directly from the school. I understand there are confidentiality issues. We can't be told of a lockdown before the lockdown happens. We don't want to know what they found in the lockdown because we don't want to give away any information. I completely understand all that. But there has to be some communication between the school and home so that we as parents know what's going on. I don't know what kind of subcommittee meetings you have. I don't know all the information, but this is a nice way to find out by having it televised. I have a sick kid at home who just had surgery. I couldn't be here if I didn't have someone at home who could be with him, but I could be watching it at home and hearing this information from you all directly. And lest we forget, the public school system is a public service. You're all public servants, whether you're a housemaster or a headmaster or an elected school official. As a taxpayer and as a parent, I pay your salary. I'm entitled to participate in these meetings, and my participation should not be dependent upon my ability to attend in person. At last month's school committee meeting, Citywide Parent Council meeting, the school committee members were asked to address what accomplishment each was most proud of about our system. Ms. Fattacante said she was most proud of our fairness, that as a system, our system is fair to everyone, regardless of their abilities or where they came from. And I agree, I think that's true. Passing this motion will continue that fairness into the next phase of Lowell Public Schools. Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to participate with public discussion? No one else? Okay, we'll move on to the motions, I believe. Motion by David Conway. All interviews for the new superintendent for the Lowell Public Schools are to be conducted publicly within an open forum. The finalists for this position, who are to be presented to the Lowell School Committee for consideration, will be interviewed within a televised open forum. I have a second on that motion. Second by Ms. Martin. On your motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that it's imperative that we have a very open and transparent process, and I think we need to allow these interviews to be held in an open forum. It allows the public, and I'm talking about the parents, I'm talking about the taxpayers, I'm talking about the citizens of Lowell, to listen to the candidates, listen to their ideas, and also understand what their vision is for the Lowell school system. I think as a candidate for a superintendent's position, I think they should invite the fact of being questioned in an open forum. This is a very high-profile position, and I would think that they would certainly want to share their ideas and their thoughts with the citizens of Lowell. I think what we have to do is we have to keep in mind something, and that is it's a public job. It's a public position, and the public is the one that puts us in these positions. And I think it's extremely important that we keep these interviews in a very, very open situation. I think the average person that applies for the superintendent's position, I think if we're very honest with ourselves, we will find that someone will obviously discuss this with the families, with our friends, relatives, perhaps our colleagues, and also we're talking about someone that is going to get a number of recommendations. How long do you think that will keep a secret? And as far as I'm concerned, I think it's extremely important that we do have this in an open forum, and I certainly hope that my colleagues will go along with this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. Certainly in seconding this motion, I share the sentiments that my colleague expressed. I do think that one of the things I want to be clear about in looking at this, and I think I don't want to infer something that the maker of the motion didn't mean for, but am I clear in understanding that we're talking about taking individuals, we have a pool of 21, I believe, as of the deadline?
Yes.
Excellent. And then having an opportunity for them to be kind of initially screened by the assistant superintendent to ensure that they meet all the baseline criteria. And are we then talking about the committee having an opportunity to choose, the selection committee, I should be clear, to choose who they want to interview, and then that next round of people, say 10 for lack of a better number, that would be happening publicly, and I know that there's a distinction here with the televised. I don't know if that was just a typo, but I'm assuming an open forum is always open for taping. Am I understanding that right, or?
Well, first of all, the first part you're correct in that. As far as I'm concerned, that motion, I meant it was basically what we would call the semifinalists that made the cut, the paper cut. As far as whether it's televised or not, I would have a preference to have it televised. However, that motion failed a couple of weeks ago in a reconsideration, and that's why this motion is similar, but yet it is different in the fact that it still is open, but it will be open to the public. So if anybody that's interested in coming down and listening to the interviews, they certainly have that opportunity. If I had my preference, I certainly would want it on television.
If I could, just in terms of, we've had gone through that initial meeting, and I think that what you're proposing does change things significantly, which I'm hoping might give us a little, a greater opportunity to get what I think you're hoping for. My sense is that if we're talking about a semifinalist round, I would be extremely comfortable with saying that that semifinalist round will be taped and will be available, so that we're basically going to have 2 rounds of interviews, one by the selection committee that will be open and will be televised, and then a second one conducted by the school committee, also open, also televised. And I do think that there is one consideration we should keep in mind, just in terms of, and I would leave it to my colleagues, we can certainly discuss it, but the idea being that if we're taping these, they may not necessarily want to be presented live. It may be an opportunity when we're talking about that first round of interviews that they're taped, but they wouldn't be shown until all of that first round of interviews had been concluded, just so that there wouldn't be, I don't think anyone's stealing answers, but if someone really nailed a question, we wouldn't want everyone else coming up with the same one. So that was just something I was thinking about as I was getting ready and preparing myself for this evening. So I don't know if the maker would consider amending to include television access for both aspects of this.
I would
If so,
feel comfortable with that.
May I interject before I recognize Mr. Leahy and Ms. Faticani? I think the gist of the motion was to have all candidates interviewed in a public forum where people can attend and the media could attend, but not be televised. And then the last 5 candidates that the screening committee has said, these are the 5 best candidates, they would be televised. Is that right, Mr. Conway?
Yes, that is correct.
So
but
that's the gist of the motion.
that's the gist of the motion, correct.
So all candidates would be interviewed in a public forum by the screening committee.
All,
People can come
No.
here and witness that, and
all candidates that would meet the initial cut, paper cut, would be interviewed.
okay.
Semifinalists.
Okay. Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. I guess I just want to be clear on this, too. I'm not opposed to having anything out in the open, but from what I can gather from the best way to select a new superintendent would be to not publicly have the first round of interviews on TV or whatever. So I'm going to stick to my original vote to not televise the first round and just interview the last 5 on TV. Thank you.
Ms. Faticani?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to agree with my colleague, Mr. Leahy, and let me tell you why. I didn't think about it until Mr. Leahy mentioned it when we had our personnel selection committee meeting, that some people may not be telling their bosses that they are leaving their position. And I frankly have to tell you, I don't think I've ever told a boss that I was looking for another job while I was in one of them. And that happens a lot, and I have to recognize that some people may be close to the end of their contract, may not be willing to jeopardize that, and so don't want to tell their superintendent that they're actually looking for another position. And I look over at these people, and I do trust them. I trust their judgment. That's why we wrangled so difficultly over who was going to be on this committee. I trust their judgment to the point where I am willing to say that the first round of interviews will be held by them and them only, and give people who are coming to the interview the respect of the privacy that they may need because they are concerned with the position that they currently hold. Thank you.
Mr. Leary?
Just quickly, I just want to reaffirm that the vote I took a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to support what I voted before. To infer that anybody would want not this to be an open forum is a wrong characterization. I think what we're trying to do in the intent of the folks who voted the other way last time was simply to get more applicants. You know, I understand when, you know, the newspaper editorial, for one example, has a different opinion, and I can see why the paper would have a different opinion. They're in the business of getting news. So that's kind of easy to understand. The way I would look at it is if I'm applying for a job, if I was working for somebody else, and I wanted to go for a different position, I really didn't want to have other folks know my business. And I think the position we have in place at this point is once the selection committee has articulated who the top finalists will be, that at that point in time, it will have to be made public. And I don't see anybody trying to circumvent the issue regarding we don't want to make it public. We just want to make sure we get the best qualified folks to apply for the superintendent position. And one can only look at the number of applicants we have right now, 21, being an indication that folks were probably waiting to see what type of process would be in place. So I would strongly suggest, I think either vote either way is a difficult decision, and I respect my colleagues for whatever vote they make at this point in time. It's not easy. It doesn't mean you're wrong either way. Just my position is I think we're more of an advantageous position given the fact that the market has dramatically changed since 1999 when we last selected a superintendent. The market is now an employee market, not an employer market. And failure to recognize that, in my opinion, holds us in great jeopardy and great peril. Thank you.
Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've given this a lot of thought. It was not one of those decisions that were easy to make. I think that sometimes I just know very clearly what's the right thing to do, and I have that conviction. And this was one of the ones where I was torn, because I'm very much in favor of an open, transparent process. I think that it's the public's right to know, it's our obligation to be held accountable for our decisions, and the easier we can make that process of communication, the better. But I also felt, as my colleagues mentioned earlier, the confidentiality for applicants was key. So I want to say that this motion is working for me in many levels. I do have some amendments to it that I'd like to put forward. First of all, the most important part to me is that all the applicants for the superintendent position will remain confidential. It's not said here, I know that it was implied, that those names are confidential until such time that the screening committee determines that they are semifinalists. They're people that they want to interview. And as my colleague mentioned, whatever that number is, if it's 10 people, whatnot, that those people then become semifinalists. They are invited by Sue Duggan, who will be representing the screening committee as the clerical secretary liaison person, to come in for an interview, at which time they will be notified. Now it moves to the public arena. But those initial 21 applicants remain confidential until they get invited to be interviewed, at which point it becomes a public process. So I would want those words added, if Mr. Conway is amenable to that, to the beginning of his motion. The other piece, the part about the interviews being televised, I think it's important that we do capture that on tape. I agree with Ms. Martin that it would be a disadvantage if they were televised live for, let's say, the 9th person who's going to be interviewed to see the questions, and the format of the prior 8 people might give them an advantage. So I would want those to be televised, because no offense to our newspaper, I think that a reporter does a fine job, but to just rely on the media of the newspaper to relay everything that happens in those interviews, I think would be limited. So I'm sorry if I'm getting confused and long-winded, but if I could just clearly indicate what my amendment would be, it would be to add the beginning of Mr. Conway's motion to say, all applicants for the superintendent position will remain confidential until they are identified as semifinalists, at which time they will be invited to come in for a public interview, and I would add in an open televised format, or open taped format.
Second the amendment?
Are you okay with that?
Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Martin.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'd like to just say just ask a quick question on that. I agree with the second part of that amendment that Ms. Martin mentioned and Ms. Doherty mentioned with the taping. I just have a question at the first part. What would be the time frame that we're discussing when we're talking about delaying the naming of the 21 or the naming of the semifinalists? What would the time frame be? How many days or weeks or?
I mean, we haven't indicated a time frame. That would be the screening committee that would come up
I think
with.
once we set a process, the screening committee is going to take it from there. Okay. And Ms. Martin?
I just wanted to say, I mean, and I think it echoes what you had said, we did set the 14th as the deadline for the screening committee to give us those names,
Right.
and I think the screening committee would be able to set their own timeline
Right.
to ensure that they met that.
Right. And I must urge everyone that the screening committee has a role to play here, and we should not interfere with that role. Ms. Fattacani?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just received this from Mayor Donahue, and it may preclude three of us from taking the vote that we are about to take. It says, this is the open meeting law guidelines, Your Honor, Chapter 39, Section 23B of the open meeting law, Section 8, to consider and interview applicants for employment by a preliminary screening committee or a subcommittee appointed by a governmental body if an open meeting will have a detrimental effect in obtained qualified applicants, semicolon, provided, comma, however, that this clause shall not apply to any meeting, including meetings of a preliminary screening committee or a subcommittee appointed by a governmental body to consider and interview applicants who have passed a primary or preliminary screening. So what I take this to mean, through the assistance of Mayor Donahue, is that the preliminary screening is that screening conducted by Assistant Superintendent of Personnel. The second screening, which would be conducted by the advisory committee, is got to be held in an open session. I think that that could, the interviews must be held in an open session. So they might meet in an executive session to talk and confer.
Right.
But the actual interview process must be held in an open session. So if they want to have a executive session prior to going into open session, that is perfectly allowable. They can set some ground rules.
Yeah.
They can do whatever. But this makes it pretty clear that we have to have an open session for the interviews.
Madam Mayor, would you like to come up and say a few words? You feel free to do so.
I apologize. I just received this information because it's a legitimate issue that I know the committee has been grappling with, and I did seek an opinion and received this advisory opinion, which the Attorney General had rendered regarding this issue. And so, and I appreciate the debate. It's simply that once it reaches a semifinalist stage, even if it's a screening committee appointed by this body, then the executive session, it cannot apply. The interviews must be conducted in public. So everything else, you know, you're empowering the screening committee to go into executive session because you're the elected officials and you're appointing this committee. And that can be done to review and set ground rules as stated. But once someone reaches what would determine a semifinalist stage, then those interviews have to be conducted in public by law. And so, and also, Mr. Mayor, as I asked earlier, we will have our initial meeting. Hopefully everybody will agree sometime early next week. And at that meeting, if someone from the law department could come and also advise everybody of the effect of open meeting laws, executive session, the obligations to hold in confidence these names, because that's what the statute says. Until they reach that stage, their names must be held in confidence. So, again, I apologize for the late
That's
information,
quite okay.
but I just got it myself.
Madam Mayor, thank you for that explanation, and more importantly, for your expertise in researching it.
And I might just add, Your Honor, to back up what Mayor Donahue has indicated, that let's say the screening committee gets 19 names. They review the 19 in executive session. They might choose to only interview 12. Well, the others that they choose not to interview, those names will remain private and confidential.
Right.
It's only those individuals who will actually be interviewed by the screening committee.
And that's understandable. But I think what Mayor Donahue indicated, that it's the law, and it's and the people, the parents deserve to witness these interviews.
So then maybe, Your Honor, we need to have another conversation and amend further Mr. Conway's motion. And that would be that all names submitted to the screening committee will be held in executive session until the screening committee announces which candidates it will actually interview. And then all of those interviews, Your Honor, will be made in a public forum, meaning with, TV, radio, print media, so forth.
So you really can't amend an amendment, but
Well,
I'll overlook it tonight,
I
but
will
you're
substitute.
amending Ms.
I will
Doherty's motion.
substitute the right.
Right, substitute motion.
Yes.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Martin, second on Ms. Martin. Any more discussion on this issue? Roll call.
Ms. Fattacante?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion, substitute motion passes.
Okay.
Your Honor, might be recognized one more time?
Yes. Go ahead.
So that this August body is not sitting here until 11 o'clock with the rest of us, might I just suggest that we, as a committee, take up all of the motions that concern the search process, that would be motion 4 and motion 8, and then have a 5-minute recess so that we can talk with this August body of people and then say goodnight to them.
Motion 4 and motion 8?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
I need
So
a
motion,
suspension of
a
the
motion
rule.
to suspend the
That's-
rules, Your Honor, to take 4 and
Motion to
8.
suspend the rules by Ms. Fattacante,
yes.
second by Ms. Doherty. All in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Suspension of rules are in order, and an excellent suggestion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Because if I was sitting there, I would be hoping that somebody here would be making that suggestion.
No, before we move on to the next motion, I want to thank the screening committee and especially Mayor Donahue for coming up with that ruling. I know she had it, and it's the utmost importance to put everything above board in a public forum and let everyone witness that forum and the interviews, because this is what government's all about, transparency, and that's the democracy we live in. So I'm happy and glad that we all come together in relation to this motion. Thank you. Motion by John Leahy. Direct the superintendent through the assistant superintendent for personnel and recruitment to provide a location in central office where members of the school committee can review the resumes of all applicants for the position of superintendent of schools, seconded by,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Conway? Mr. Leary? Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. The motion basically speaks for itself, but I don't know under this new,
Well, I will
does
say
that
that,
affect my motion?
through you, Your Honor, to Mr. Leahy, the committee did do this in our previous search, because we do have a proviso in the, in our agreement that we had with the personnel, subcommittee meeting the other night, and that was if, that we could in fact add in a, I think it's, can we add in a candidate? So if the committee so chooses, it might find a quirky candidate that strikes us as being somebody is interesting, and we might like to submit that to the committee to interview to get their opinion on it. We would be able to do that, and we wouldn't be able to do that, Your Honor, unless we did have an opportunity to look at the applications.
I don't have a problem with the
Okay.
motion. I just want to caution the committee.
Yes.
You look at those resumes.
Yes.
And the names stay there. You
Well,
cannot.
that's
okay,
the caution, Your Honor.
That has
that's
to
absolutely-
happen. So as long as everyone agrees to that.
Right.
That, I don't have a problem with the
There will
motion.
be no writing implements allowed in the room with the resumes.
Right, so, any more discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Ms. Fattacante?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
The eighth motion by James Leary. Request that the Lowell School Committee discuss and consider the possibility of allowing the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and the members of the Superintendent Search Committee to contact and encourage known potential superintendent candidates who have yet to apply to complete an application. In addition, extending the superintendent's application deadline to February 29th, 2008. This would not require additional advertising or delay the interview process of the current applicants by the search committee. Moreover, the search committee timeline to submit these 5 applicants alphabetically to the school committee will be extended an additional week to March 14th, 2008. Do I have a second on the motion? Mr. Leahy, on the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I think with the number 21, it's obviously less palatable than it would have been probably a week ago. I think that the March 14th date also, I think when we went through the 4.5-hour marathon of deciding on the process, I thought it was actually March 17th. So in effect, the March 14th date doesn't change. Just information out there, this wouldn't change any of the timeframes in terms of when the 5 finalists would be presented to the school committee. Yeah, in fact, if in business sense, you know, I've hired people before, both as a manager of a company as well as owner of my own company, you don't really want to get tied into specific dates. This also, in terms of costs zero, costs absolutely no dollars to request the Mass Association of School Committees to assist. I know that there was issues regarding potential political shenanigans or political issues that may or may not arise because of, having the search committee come in. That I could easily amend and delete from the motion. The specific intent is simply to get more candidates. I think looking at more candidates is never a bad thing. I think that when you're looking at the value of cost being zero, I don't think that's something that's going to hit us financially. You're looking at the time frames of March 14th. That doesn't change anything. Doesn't cause a delay, because you're really looking at the process evolving and going forward. You're never stopping the process. To suggest that when the search committee selects a certain number of folks for applicants, a certain amount of those numbers are going to take time, and it'll be last through the month of February anyway. To suggest otherwise, I would strongly say that you're not dealing with dates and specifics, and I think from that point, I'd be willing to amend that. I fully acknowledge that this is something that's controversial. I fully acknowledge that it's not something that's highly favorable, but I think it can't hurt to add more candidates to the list. 21 candidates, we don't know who any of them are right at this point in time. You have 38 vacancies throughout the great state of Massachusetts for superintendents that we know of today. You don't know how many of the 21 have actually applied for those 38 positions. In addition, you have a few applicants, positions opening up in New Hampshire. Just in the paper yesterday, there's a Manchester, which is the sister city of ours, not too far up to the north, that also has a position available. Worcester is an urban community. So if you're looking at likes applying for urban communities, you have a lot of those as well. Again, I fully acknowledge that this is something that's difficult. It's challenging. It's outside the box, if you will, but it doesn't cause delay. It doesn't cause any financial harm or reduction in our budget, and it also meets the March 14th deadline. So, thank you.
Ms. Faticani?
Thank you, Your Honor. I will agree with my colleague that it doesn't cause any delay, but that's as far as I can agree with my colleague. My concern is that members of this school committee or the Mass Association of School Committees begin to handpick and select people. I think it gives a indicia of that we went out of our way to select a particular person because that's the person we're going to hire. I think if we label that person, they never get a break here in the community because it's always going to be thought of as the person that we specifically, the 7 of us, brought in. I don't want to hire a new superintendent with that kind of thought being held over them. I just also think that it does lend itself to a political process. I know superintendents, and I would love to call and say, hey, why don't you apply? But then that also gives them the impression that they have my vote, or that they might have some votes on this committee. And I do not want that to happen. I just think that that is not where we want to go in this process. I think that certainly with Mr. Leahy's motion, that does allow us to take a look at the 21 applicants. It allows us to include another applicant, so we choose to the search committee. But I would like to stop there. I do not want this to become a political process where we are going out and saying, well, you, and you, why don't you come and apply? If they haven't applied, they're not interested. And I just don't think, I think that it taints the process. With all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Leary, I think it does give a negative tinge to the process, and I can't support this. I'm sorry.
Mr. Conway, on the motion.
I think that we were very concerned with the fact that were there going to be enough of candidates apply for the superintendent's position. I think it's clear that with 21 candidates, I'm sure that with the help of the screening committee and also the school committee, I think we're going to pick an excellent candidate that will bring this school system forward in a positive direction. If I was a candidate for the superintendent's position, I think that I would be very concerned if this motion passed, because I would feel that my qualifications perhaps were not good enough and that I was being overlooked. I personally, I can't go along with this motion.
Mr.
Thank
Leary?
you.
Thank you, and I respect my colleague's position on this. I think this is something that's more of a business sense. If, business orientated, you're always trying to look for the best person. As far as the 21 applied, I don't know who applied. I have no clue. I think you're going to find out, though, with 38 positions out there, these people are applying someplace else. That's pretty, I would be. That's the way I think from a business standpoint. I don't think from a government standpoint. Regarding the political aspect of it, I respect my colleague's opinion on it. I don't think I'm suggesting that I think I even said we'd amend removing the search committee from that process, as well as no one from the school committee would do it. What I said specifically is we'd take the Massachusetts Association of School Committees to assist us with bringing these numbers up. Now, that's not political. I don't know who any of them really are. I don't belong to it. I don't go to their meetings. I just know they provide a service for free, and they reach contacts that perhaps the Boston Globe didn't reach. So I respectfully disagree. I know this is something that's somewhat outside the box, and it's new, it's different, it's kind of creative, and I respect a difference of opinion on that. Thank you.
If I may just briefly say something from the chair. I believe the first advertisement went out around December 19th, in that time frame. 21 people answered that advertisement. 21 candidates have applied. And if they haven't applied by now, I can't see where they might be interested. And I certainly agree with my call. I can't support this motion. I think we should move forward and interview the candidates we presently have now. Any other discussion? If not, roll call.
Ms. Fattacante?
No.
Mr. Leahy?
No.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
No.
Mayor Caulfield?
No.
Mr. Conway?
No.
Ms. Fattacante? Ms. Doherty, I'm sorry. Ms.
No.
Doherty, no. 1 yea, 6 nays, defeated.
Your Honor, may I have 5-minute recess, please?
Yes. As the screening committee, would you like to stay for the entire meeting? You don't have to, but you're welcome to stay. But if not, if you decide to leave, once again, I want to put your hands together for this great committee. And Mayor Donahue, I will contact the law office, Christine O'Connor's office, and we'll be in touch with you, okay?
Do I have a second on the recess?
On the what?
Recess, Ms. Doherty. I need a second on the recess.
Second.
Okay, recessed at 8:40. want you in there too. But, where is it now? Where were you? The special meeting? Okay, here's the regular meeting. You didn't speak on that, but it was a special meeting. I hope they put it in there. Oh, no, you know what? It's the personnel. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, honey. Wait a minute. I know. No, but there's personnel. Where is it? Wait a minute. 2 seconds here. Personnel. Now, what's your name again? I'm sorry. Okay, but I said something else later on. But there you are. Say that only one minority was being represented. She felt that more minorities should be represented to the search committee. Mrs. Clinton also felt the number should be more than 9. Okay, you want to keep talking? You can. Okay, honey? You are. You are. Yeah.
It wouldn't be fair. I mean, but as a parent, it's certainly a lot more.
That's fine. Monday at 7.
I'll do it. I think that you know. No.
But as a parent, I definitely
Anyone can come and say, not anyone, yeah? You do. Yeah, I have to finish. I have to take the minutes. I have to stay. That's wrong then. All right, I'll change it. All right.
I tried to get your attention. I think you thought I was just waiting for approval of the minutes. There is kind of a serious mistake in these minutes. You wrote that Mr. Lincoln's motion was that anybody on the school committee can take part in the search committee. That wasn't his motion. His motion was that he wanted the search committee to be Lowell residents. Remember that?
Yeah,
It
right.
failed miserably. But I don't want the minutes to reflect that we can't. So we have to go back. I think he's going to.
I'll recognize, is John going to bring it up?
I think it is, because
Okay.
it's his, he will.
Before
It's
we
his
go on to the
motion.
motions, we'll do this.
Just amend that.
where is he? John, make a suspension of the rules to bring that back on the floor. Okay? Can you give me 2 seconds on that? There's a mistake here.
Getting everyone back to the seat.
Special meeting. Let me I just gotta change something. In that special meeting. It was Leahy that voted, not Larry. Their names are so close, let me tell you. Why can't I?
Let's go.
Okay, this is before that. Okay, wait a minute. Minutes.
Roll call, please.
Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, roll call. Give me 2 seconds. Roll call at 8:03. Miss Fattacante.
Here?
Mr. Leahy.
Here.
Mr. Larry.
Here.
Miss Martin.
Here.
Mayor Caulfield.
Here?
Mr. Conway.
Here.
Miss Doherty.
Here.
7 present.
I believe that Mr. Leahy would like a correction in the minutes of the January 23rd special meeting at the Lowell School Committee. Mr. Leahy?
Do I need to make a suspension of the rules or just do the correction?
Just bring
Okay.
it forward.
I missed this on the first round. On the special meeting of the Lowell School Committee, first page,
Yeah,
the
okay, yeah.
motion that I made should say that I had required a residency requirement for the search committee, and then that was defeated 2 yeas, 5 nays.
I believe your motion was anyone serving on the screening committee would have to reside in Lowell.
Yes, yeah.
So, okay, if we word it that way, be okay?
Sure, no, that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
So can I have a motion, minutes as amended approved?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
A correction
correct.
in the minutes. Have you got that, Jim?
Yeah, but I just want someone
Move
to say.
to accept the minutes as amended.
Thank you. And I want a second, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
All in favor of the correction to the minutes, signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
approve? The corrections are made. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Leahy. Okay, let's get back to the motions. The third motion, by Jackie Doherty, request the superintendent require all schools to communicate with parents either through Connect Ed telephone calls or letters home immediately after any lockdown exercise, including any major findings or results of the exercise. Seconded by Mr. Leahy. On the motion?
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to be clear that the communication would in no way compromise any lockdown discoveries. The idea is to inform families after the fact that these things happen. And I want to give you an example. We had an elementary school that had a soft lockdown last week because of, I guess, a bank robber who was in the neighborhood. And that principal took it upon herself to, now I don't know if it was a Connect Ed call, which doesn't cost us anything. We pay a yearly fee. We can make as number of phone calls home as we want. Or if a letter was sent, I don't recall exactly. But that principal sent information home to parents to let them know about the soft lockdown, that it had happened, and just to assure families that their children were safe in our schools. And I applaud that. That was the right thing to do. The high school last week had a lockdown as an exercise. This is the world we live in today. When we were in school, we used to have fire drills periodically, but now they have lockdowns. And they're generally to make sure our staff and our students understand what to do in any kind of emergency so that they're safe. And I think it's a positive thing to do. The thing with the lockdowns, especially a hard lockdown, it can be intimidating for children because you have police coming in with weapons and you have dogs sometimes at the high school. And my whole intention with this is to really have a policy in place that we say it's not up to the discretion of a principal who thinks of it, like the example of the elementary school principal who did, but that we really want our administrators to reach out to families. And again, never to relay information that would in any way compromise the effectiveness of the lockdown and what they discovered or how they're going to move forward or anything, but as a way of assuring parents and informing parents. This happened today in school. We're on top of it. This is an exercise that we do, and it's really to just improve our communication with our families, and that is my intention with the motion, and I would appreciate my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Mr. Conway?
Yes, I think it's a motion that's long overdue. I think it's a great idea, because as a member of the school department for a number of years, I've been involved with some of the lockdowns and some of those issues, and I think it is extremely important to get that message out to the parents, because what it does do is it dispels the rumors, because that's what happens. It's amazing how many rumors start flying around, that there is all sorts of problems. And again, it could be just an exercise, as Ms. Doherty said, in a lockdown, and it's something that's precautionary, and we find that individuals take it to completely different levels. So I very definitely think this is long overdue, and I think it's a great motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Fattacani?
Thank you, Your Honor. It is a good idea that we inform our parents when we have a lockdown. I think, as Mr. Conway indicates, the rumors are probably worse than the real thing. But I would just caution, when we actually make the phone call, it shouldn't be made during the lockdown, because part of the problem is parents coming to the school now and interfering because they are concerned with the process that is being undertaken by law enforcement. The only issue I have is where it says including any major findings or results of the exercise. I don't want to jeopardize any criminal case that may be brought as a result of something found during the lockdown. Now, Your Honor, that being said, we have had many lockdowns at the high school, and I have to say that nothing has ever been discovered at that high school that in any way would jeopardize any of our students. But my only concern is that issue of the jeopardizing any kind of criminal case that may be brought as a result of something discovered at the lockdown. I don't know what the committee wants to do. Maybe have our attorney take a look at it. I'm not sure what we want to do about that. I'm just concerned at any kind of information being given to the public that makes them even more concerned, or information given out that jeopardizes us bringing any kind of a criminal complaint. Thank you.
Madam Superintendent.
I think I would like to offer the suggestion that you used to add the words "when appropriate," and that way we wouldn't be giving information that would be inappropriate, but there are times when it might be helpful to be able to say, for example, say the high school does a lockdown or an evacuation, for example, and might report that it was the fastest evacuation of the year, or it was slower than we had hoped it would be, and therefore we're taking steps to X, Y, Z. That kind of thing. So it's hopefully providing a basis for confidence on the part of parents that every time we do one of these, we are trying to figure out how we can do it better the next time. And so I think that might be the spirit of the kind of thing that the information we would give to parents, not something specific that would be anything that might compromise a case.
Ms. Doherty?
I would be in favor of adding those words, to amend my motion to say when appropriate. Or was it as appropriate? She said when.
Do we have a second on the amendment, please?
Wait a minute. Seconded by who? Mr. Leary, amendment presented by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Leary. All in favor of the amended motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I just have one question. Isn't, to Madam Superintendent or members of the committee, do we have anything in place right now that, no communications at all? Madam Superintendent?
We have a fairly extensive communication protocol. This would be expanding it to make sure that in all cases that there'd be communication about this kind of safety drill. And I think it's a good idea because it helps inform parents. First, as people have said, avoid rumors, but also build confidence on the part of parents that we are taking a proactive approach to children's school safety. So I think that this will just ensure that it's consistently applied across all schools.
Just to interject, if there's a lockdown at the high school, you're looking at contacting over 3,000 homes or parents, so forth, a huge, huge task. Mr. Conway? Mr. Conway, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to ask just a quick question here. My concern might be that would the message be the same, consistent from, from principal to principal? In other words, are they going to know the menu on what to say and what not to say?
Well, yeah, I would imagine whatever the superintendent comes up with, it would follow through for every school. It wouldn't, right, Madam
That's what I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I think, if I could just, two things. I think we will give sample scripts, and we'll also give sample translations of those sample scripts, because we have the complexity, of course, of communicating with families in more than one language. So we'll give sample scripts, but of course, typically, there'll be some modification, because the lockdown, or the practice lockdown, or the real lockdown will have had a specific cause, and I'm sure parents would want to know, because of a crime 8 blocks away, on the advice of the police, we had a soft lockdown at such and such a school, and there might be a different reason at another school. So yeah, we'll give sample scripts, and in terms of notifying families, we do have this reverse 9/11 system called Connect Ed, where we're able to, with the push of a couple of buttons, making sure you've got the right time when you want the call sent out, we can notify all 3,700, the families of all 3,700 students at the high school within a matter of about 15 minutes to get all the calls out.
Okay.
As part of an annual subscription service that we now subscribe to. So we think it's a effective tool for that kind of notification. Doing it by paper at the high school would not be a wise way for us to do it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We're moving on to the motion by Jackie Doherty. It's the second motion I neglected to read. By Jackie Doherty, request clarification from the full school committee.
Excuse me, Mayor, I'm sorry. Did we actually just vote on that at all? I don't think we voted on it, did we? Because I don't recall.
I think I said all in favor of the amended
Oh, I
motion.
didn't hear. I'm
signify by
sorry.
saying
I'm
aye.
sorry. My fault. I apologize.
I think I said that, didn't I?
Yes. No, he did.
Second motion by Jackie Doherty, request clarification from the full committee regarding the school committee's decision on September 19, 2007, to televise Lowell High School subcommittee meetings. Do I see a second? Second by Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to just briefly do a cap on the history of this motion. In fall of 2006, my colleague, Mr. Leahy, and I had a motion asking for the feasibility of having some of our subcommittee meetings televised, kind of modeling after what the City Council was doing at the time with televising some of their subcommittee meetings. A year went by, and nothing really happened with it. And I think part of that was because LTC was very caught up with televising the City Council subcommittees and really did not have the staffing to meet our needs in terms of televising. So in the fall of '07, actually September 5th, I brought forward another motion on this issue asking for the superintendent to look into the feasibility of televising the high school subcommittee meetings, in particular as a starting point, as a pilot program at the high school television studio, Channel 22. And we did vote on I think it was the 19th of September, on that meeting, to move forward with this pilot program. And we had one meeting of the Lowell High School Subcommittee televised last year, and that was on October 29th of 2007. This comes before this committee again now because we are having our next high school subcommittee meeting next week. And I would like to schedule that meeting to be held at the Lowell High School Television Studio to continue the piloting, because in my mind, one meeting is not a pilot program. However, in order to move forward, we really need to make some decisions to get us through. My intention was to televise our subcommittee meetings through this school year, through the year at the high school, and then reassess two things at that time. The benefits of doing that in terms of for our high school students, because part of what we're hoping to get out of this is a communications club. As you know, Your Honor, you've been at the studio. It's a multi-million-dollar facility. I don't think there's a dozen high schools in the area that could compare with the kind of a TV studio that we have at Lowell High. Yet we only currently have 30 students in the Communications Academy. So part of the goal was to get this communications club up and running by having kids get involved in the specific project of televising our meetings. So that was one thing we were going to look at. The other thing is to go back to LTC, because I know the City Council is looking at wiring the mayor's reception room for television access. So that would give us perhaps another venue where we could hold our subcommittee meetings. As my colleagues and Your Honor yourself have mentioned, even as early as tonight, as late as tonight, an open, transparent government is something we all strive for. It's part of how democracy works. So in order to move forward, at least to get through the rest of this year, and especially our meeting next week, I think we need to look at some of the costs associated with doing it in the school department right now. I got an initial amount of about $300 is what it cost us to televise our meeting in October. But I've also been informed that we could bring that cost down if we televised it live. That the whole archiving, the time involved in that, and as long as we keep it at the TV studio, the setup and breakdown is limited. So the way I'm looking at it, let's say we stay at $300 a meeting, which I think we can bring it down to $200 easily. That's a cost of less than $2,000 if we have 6 meetings. Now, we have a $139 million budget. So if we can't come up with less than $2,000 to keep our high school subcommittee meetings on the air so that parents, I mean, this is our flagship school. Every student ends up at the high school. And we're doing some great work in the subcommittee. And I think there are still many challenges that we face. But the idea of having an open process that invites parents, teachers, members of the community to see the work that's going on is a very important one. And certainly worth $2,000, especially when you consider all the other kinds of events that the high school is able to televise, which are all valuable, worthwhile events, whether it's community day at an elementary school, a basketball game, a farewell to our colleague when we had a television program about Mr. McHugh for his last meeting. These are all valuable things, but so is televising the high school subcommittee meetings. And I would say I feel very strongly about our need to continue to outreach to our community and have as open a transparent government as we possibly can. So I am asking my colleagues to provide the financial support to continue to move forward with these televised high school subcommittee meetings, to truly do a pilot program, which means we will reassess it again at the end of the school year, and hopefully by that time we'll have some more guidance from LTC that they would be able to take over this burden, because frankly, I know for our students, although I think it's a good lesson in civics to see how their high school is governed and how we deal with some of the challenges, I know it's not their favorite kind of a video shoot to do. Thank you.
Mr. Conway?
Yes, I think it's extremely important that we do have, as we've said tonight and we have said many times, I think it's extremely important that we have an open process, and that we have parents that can, certainly we communicate with parents and communicate with the community. What does bother me a bit on this motion is that the cost is between $300 and $500. That's my understanding. That was figures that was given to me actually the day before yesterday. And the reason, my point was, well, why aren't the students doing that? And it was told that the reason why is they are more involved with the commentaries, they're more involved with the sports, because they see their friends and they have a lot more enjoyment doing that. And when you were doing a subcommittee meeting, it's simply what they call a point and shoot. So by the time you have the setup and the point and the shoot and the editing, the range is somewhere between $300 or $500. What bothers me about this is the fact that a pilot program obviously denotes the fact that this is something that's going to continue, and it's going to also spill over, should we say, with the rest of the subcommittees, which isn't necessarily a bad idea at all. However, when I take a look at the cost and also look at the fact that we're going to be faced with some financial problems in the upcoming year and the upcoming couple years. I mean, we've already talked about the possibility of it certainly is out there, the possibility of even closing down the school. And, I would rather take that money, to be quite frank with you, and I know it's not necessarily a lot of money, but I'd rather put it into the reading program or put it into the math program at this point. And again, I agree that we need to have an open forum, should we say, for parents. I would like to say that in this motion or any other motion, there's one thing about saying, no, I disagree with it, but I think it's also very important to come up with perhaps some compromises or some alternatives. And maybe the superintendent, through you, Mr. Mayor, might be able to answer this question. I mean, could we put a link? Could we put a link on the school department on its website, so that when we have a subcommittee, whether it's on not just Lowell High School, but with all our subcommittees, that we can take those subcommittees and take the transcript of it and put it into the website, so that parents can perhaps take a look exactly what took place in our meeting. Or, maybe another thing that we could do is perhaps have it on a scroll on the television. Maybe they'll allow that, and that perhaps wouldn't cost us any money. I'm just looking at the cost here down the road, and for that reason, I think I can't really go along with this motion. Thank you.
Ms. Fattacani?
Thank you, Your Honor. As my colleague suggested, they are public meetings. And whenever we have a subcommittee meeting, they are open to the public. They are publicized, and they are announced. And Mr. Conway's idea of having a link on our school department website, which would indicate when subcommittee meetings are coming up, what the agenda would be, and then after the subcommittee meeting has been undertaken, then the minutes of that subcommittee meeting would in fact be shown on our website. Maybe we need to get far more creative and interactive about our school department website. I'm not willing to spend any money to hire someone to work overtime to televise these meetings. I refuse to do that because they are public meetings. We are not saying to the public, you can't come to the meeting. They're posted, people know when they are, but I agree with Mr. Conway. I'm not going to spend another $2,000 to $3,000 when I know I'm coming to a budget deficit. And the superintendent has indicated to us, we've got to close a school. And my colleague might say, $3,000 is nothing, but when we're scrambling to look for another coach, as we have in the past, that's a coach. And so I want people to recognize that that is a body in our school system that works with our youngsters. And that's where I want to spend my money, considering we're going to have some tough financial times ahead. Thank you.
Ms. Spott?
Thank you very much. I have to say, I wasn't privy to some of these conversations. Can I ask how this, what was it, $300 to $500 fee was reached?
Your Honor, through you, I'd like to ask Mr. Lane to address that, because I didn't get a number of 500. I got a number of 300 that could be dropped to 200 if we televised it live. So I would like to know from our financial person what his thoughts are on it.
Excuse me, I didn't receive the 200 number either. I did see correspondence that came from the high school related to the amount of overtime that it costs to televise the events. And the number I saw come from them was about 10 hours for one of the other meetings that we had done at about $30 an hour for the overtime. So it was $300 for the event. I hadn't seen a higher or lower number. That was the number that was posed to me from the high school. And pretty much it was for the setup of the event, the actual taping, and then the professional teacher's time to do the recording to get it set up to play on Channel 22.
Ms. Martin?
Well, a couple different comments. And I certainly, having gone to a number of high school subcommittees, know that they feel like they take 10 hours. I mean, I recognize that. My sense is that they have very rarely gone beyond 2.5. I mean, if we're talking about a 3-to-1 prep versus actual time, that seems like a lot of time. Okay. I just want to say a couple quick things. I think that, I recognize that the budget we face is something that every dollar is going to count, and I don't think there's any member of this committee that doesn't recognize that. I also think that when we consider, and I wouldn't put Mr. Lang on the spot, but when we consider the amount of money we have invested in the Communications Academy, it is significant, and I think that it is challenging for me to see that that is not something that should be accommodated by the high school. I mean, they have a budget of many thousands of dollars. It is inconceivable to me that they cannot manage that in order to accomplish taping 1 2-hour meeting every two months. However, I will take it as it is presented that it is a 10-hour process to accomplish this single subcommittee. Even accepting that as fact, the reality of this is, and we talk about this all the time when we're going through our budget process, the budget is an absolute living, breathing representation of what we value. When we value teachers, that's why we spend the money there. Where we value the myriad of other things we spend our money on, coaches, extracurricular, heat. I mean, these are things we value, and so we spend money on them. I think to spend a great deal of time and effort talking that that we support open processes, to say that we expect our parents to be involved. We're disappointed and shocked in many cases when they're not. We expect taxpayers in general to feel a sense of ownership of this school district and for the work that it does. I think it really places a huge burden on us to ensure that we use any and every available technology, opportunity, and situation to be able to bring the public in to what it is we're discussing. I don't think it's fair for us to spend hours upon hours extolling the virtues of the Communications Academy, saying how it is, a fundamental value to our students, if it happens in a vacuum and it doesn't serve the purpose of allowing the public in. And I think that if communications is about nothing else, it's about using a variety of ways to communicate important information. And I certainly think all of our subcommittees warrant it. I think that the high school subcommittee was a natural first choice, just because of the location and because it was so really on point for what that subcommittee obviously discusses. But I certainly remember in the very recent past, many discussions both here and on the council, and in all honesty nationwide, about transparency in government, about an absolute recognition that the accountability we hold to the taxpayer and to our constituencies and to the voters of Lowell is absolute. And it is our responsibility to ensure that in every way we can, we take advantage of it. I don't dispute in any one way that $2,500 or $3,000 is significant. We've all seen what a difference that small amount of money can make in this district. But I would put forth that it would be $2,500 or $3,000 extremely well spent if it gave us one more avenue into the homes of the parents of Lowell High School students and to the taxpayers in the city of Lowell who foot the bill for all of this.
Anyone else? Mr. Leahy?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to say that I concur with my colleague, that Ms. Martin, that I feel we're already committed to this. We've already said we want an open process. We want to try, as the city side is, to televise as many subcommittee meetings as we can. And therefore, I think once we've got this ball rolling, we should continue with it. It's money well spent with the Communications Academy. The kids are learning. It might not be the most glamorous job to cover or whatever. They'd rather go to a basketball game or a football game. But the meetings happen. They're still learning. They're still working. They're using the equipment. So I think it's money well spent. Thank you.
Mr. Leary?
Just quickly, I think I agree with Mr. Leahy. This is obviously something that's money well spent. It's a no-brainer. It's something that, $2,000, $3,000 as we transition, hopefully with the mayor's room being hopefully wired at some point, Mayor. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but that's something that we can obviously move into that area and then have other subcommittees actually televised. We did this one time last year. It was a challenge to do it. I think we'll get better as we go forward with it. I think, as Ms. Martin said, we value where we put our money. And as we go through the budget process, which we'll be talking about in a minute in more detail, Lowell High School will be one of the areas where a lot of budget changes, a lot of changes are evolving. And perhaps that might be one of the areas where this comes out to the public in terms of some of these changes that we'll be discussing. That, I think, is a good thing. I know it's, again, like Ms. Federici pointed out, maybe you're going to have to talk about dismissing a coach at some point. We'll have to make a decision on what we value. And that's really what the discussion will be. And I would suggest, and we'll go into it again, everything in the budget process is on the table. Everything.
Ms. Dougherty, and then Mr. Conway.
Yes, Your Honor, I just want to sum up by saying I think that the accountability piece of having our meetings televised is very important, and I would move at this point to ask the committee to accept the continuation of the pilot program regarding televising Lowell High School subcommittee meetings. I'd make that in the way of a formal motion.
What was that again now? You brought in another motion?
To accept the continuation of a pilot program to televise Lowell High School subcommittee meetings.
Well, there is
That's
a
part of your
on the
motion, isn't it?
floor.
Well, I didn't actually ask for
We
it.
haven't voted on this motion
Yeah,
yet.
well, this motion, we have a motion on the floor,
Okay.
okay? Is this one first, okay?
I get confused easy. Mr. Conway,
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify something, as far as the subcommittee, televising the subcommittee, students are not involved with that. As I said before, it's extremely difficult to get the students to do this subcommittee meeting. So it's not a learning experience for the students. It obviously opens up communication with the community. But again, I think that we have to take a look at the cost, and as we said, my colleagues have said, everything will be on the table. I just thank you, Mr. Mayor.
before I take a roll call, I'm going to ask a question to Ms. Dougherty. If you could televise this high school subcommittee meetings in the mayor's reception room, would you be happy with that?
That would be fine with me. It's
Then
just not
televise
ready.
them right here. What's
Right
that?
now,
You can't get the room?
no, it's.
Why?
Because the city council subcommittee meetings are
Yeah,
televised.
but if
too.
if there's not subcommittee meetings every night, and if you call the city clerk, excuse me?
We pursued that for a year.
You
That's
tried
why-
that, and
yeah.
what was the response?
They didn't have the staffing or the space right now.
LTC?
Right. So times are changed. I think we'll get through this year, and in the fall, we'll be looking at doing it on LTC.
Would you mind if I investigated that to see if we could get those meetings
That's
televised?
fine, but for right now, I would like to move forward with. we've
Okay,
got
if that's what you want, okay.
We have a meeting next week.
Roll call.
Ms. Fattacante,
No.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
No.
Mr. Conway,
No.
Ms. Dougherty.
Yes.
Motion is
4
passed.
yeas, 3 nays, it passes.
Roughly, how many meetings would you have there a year at the high school? I mean, not only the Lowell High School subcommittee, but you have to open this up to everybody. How many,
Starting with the pilot program of the high school, that's what the motion was. That's what.
how many meetings a year would you
I
have?
think we maybe have 6 meetings.
How many?
If we were looking at every subcommittee, we could have 2 to 3 meetings a week, because that's basically the schedule that we're on.
Yeah.
So that's 3 times 300.
Let me investigate,
clearly need to get the mayor's reception room.
let me investigate LTC to see if we can, on a Thursday night or whatever, to see if this is available. And if we can save money by doing that, then that's what we should do. Okay? Okay, going back to the motions, motion by John Leahy, request that the superintendent and appropriate special education department staff provide a report informing the committee why the resources of Challenges Unlimited in Andover, Massachusetts are not utilized by the Lowell Public Schools, seconded by
I'll second.
Mr. Leahy. Motion.
Thank you. This motion I put on last week because I'd just like to finally get, I guess in my mind, an appropriate answer. I've been asking about this for a little over a year. What challenge the resources that the Challenge Unlimited in Andover could provide the Lowell Public Schools, in my mind, it seems like they've just got such great resources for us. In the past, I guess I've been told that money may be an issue, but after seeing some of the commitments that we have for special education that come across our desk, their rates that I know of seem reasonable. So they offer great opportunity for a lot of children out there, and what it is, it's therapy through horses, riding programs, and it's just a great program. I have personal involvement myself out there, so that's how I know about it. And I just think it's a great program, and I would just wish that we would at least send someone out there to investigate to see if this would be a worthwhile venture for us. We did have some sort of contract with them in years past, and then we haven't utilized their services in a while, and I would just like a report, to either say yay or nay. Thank you.
Mr. Conway on the motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a couple of comments about that. I'm familiar with the equine program in Ironstone Farm, and I know that at this particular time, they service approximately 450 students with special needs, and it also includes approximately 84 towns and cities in the area, which is obviously quite inclusive. Now, the question I have is, what do those people know that perhaps we don't know? And it's my understanding that we did have a program a number of years ago. And I'd like to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask the superintendent, when we had that program and what happened?
Madam
If I could ask Assistant Superintendent Murphy to comment, she has some direct information about that.
Thank you. Several years ago, when the school system had great difficulty employing physical therapists and occupational therapists, at that time, we just weren't able to find the staff. So we contracted out with Challenge Unlimited to provide, and we used their services for hippotherapy in lieu of the physical therapy that we weren't able to provide in-house. So we were contracting out with that agency. Since that time, we've been able to employ an adequate number of physical therapists to provide direct services to our students in-house. We'll certainly get you a full report. I'll ask the Director of Special Education to relook at it, but I know at the time that we did contract with them many years ago, it was because we could not locate physical therapists to come and work in the system. There were some issues with having enough staff at Ironstone Farm and the number of horses, and I know that the program has significantly expanded since that time. So we'll certainly take a look at it, and I'll ask the Director of Special Education to put a full report together for you.
In the last few years, I don't think it has become easier to find PT and OTs in the last 7 or 8 years. I think it's extremely difficult because now the qualifications of a PT is a doctorate, which is obviously making things very difficult for us. Are we completely staffed at this particular point with our OT and PTs?
We have been completely staffed with our physical therapists for several years now. Our occupational therapist, we had a therapist leave at the very beginning of this school year. We have not been able to replace that person full-time yet. We've contracted with someone to work part-time, but that is a position that we still have half-time unfilled.
Right. So in other words, we're really, is it fair to say that we're not in compliance at this point on our IEPs?
It's fair to say that some students are not receiving the occupational therapy and that we absolutely do need to provide compensatory services for those students, yes.
So I would assume that it would probably make very good sense to go and examine that particular program, because I have checked with I've checked with a couple PTs, and they were fascinated with the combination of equine and PT and OT, and it was very unusual. It's a very, very unusual program. And I think it's something that we should certainly take a look at, because if we have 82 or 84 towns and cities that have bought into this, and I understand why, because many school systems obviously have difficult times finding PTs and OTs. I mean, you could do nationwide searches, and first of all, you're not gonna get many applicants, obviously. So I think that's something that we definitely need to take a look at. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We can refer the motion to the Madam Superintendent and look for a report, and bring the report back to the committee. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. I just want to say just a few words about Ironstone Farm. I had the pleasure of going around downtown with a group of people from Andover singing carols around Christmas time, and I had a great time. And we raised money for the Ironstone Farm. They are just wonderful people, and the services that they offer are spectacular. And it's an excellent program for children who have a disability, and they're not in business to make money. I think they're in business to help people. And it's an excellent motion you brought forward, Mr. Leahy. Next motion by John Leahy, requests that the superintendent and headmaster of Lowell High School provide a report on the current status of the security programs, security guards, and police officers at Lowell High School and the alternative school programs. Further, that the committee be presented with recommended actions to be considered to assist with improving the overall security conditions at Lowell High School and the alternative school programs, seconded by Ms. Doherty. On the motion?
Thank you, Your Honor. By this motion, the purpose is to improve the high school, and I would just like to assist and help them with their needs at the high school. I'd like to hear on the report, I'd like to hear what the recommendations would come from the high school. What I was thinking about is if we have 9 security people at the high school, we should be looking at maybe staggering the schedule a little bit, and with periodic overtime, you could have 2 people there from 10 in the morning till 8 at night, or whatever. You could stagger it however their needs are, however they see fit. But I think by staggering shifts, giving periodic overtime to security at the high school will keep everybody on guard down there. There's never you can't prevent everything at the high school, but we can always improve to make it a better place, a safer place. The security, the police down there, they do an excellent job. As any big high school, things happen once in a while with a few lockers getting broken into. This is just another way to try to prevent that and try to make everybody feel as safe as possible. Thank you.
On the motion, Ms. Fadden?
Thank you, Your Honor. It's an excellent motion. I'm wondering if Mr. Leahy wants to send this to the Safety Subcommittee, and we'll actually have a meeting with the parties that Mr. Leahy is requesting the report from. Sometimes maybe getting one of the officers here to have a conversation with us, the head of security, and in fact getting the headmaster to have a conversation with us, and then developing some recommendations that would come to the full committee.
Yeah, sure,
okay.
That'd be great.
Excellent, all right.
Do you want to amend the motion to send?
I will amend Mr. Leahy's motion with his permission to send this to the Safety Subcommittee to have a meeting with the parties involved.
Who's going to second that motion? Second by Mr. Conway. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. The
Aye.
motion will
Aye.
be referred to the Safety Subcommittee, and we'll be coming back with a report. Motion by James Leary, request the superintendent provided to the school committee an update status pertaining to the reorganization of the Parent Information Center with emphasis on customer service and cost savings to be achieved, seconded by Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, I actually talked to Assistant Superintendent Ann Murphy. There are actually going to be a report regarding this for very shortly, but it's just a question of taking a look at improvement anywhere we can. I know they work very hard, and they're going to be challenged in a lot of ways in the next year or so that I don't think we would have envisioned a couple of years ago. Thank you.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Subcommittees. The Athletic Subcommittee report and approval of the minutes of the meeting of the January 23rd, 2008. Ms. Fattacani is chair. Would you like to discuss that? Okay.
Yes, present were, again, on the athletic subcommittee, David Conway and John Lacey. Other committee members who were there were committee member Leary. Also present were the superintendent, the headmaster, Ms. Harris, and the interim athletic director, Dennis Kuziak. The agenda of the meeting was the posting of the athletic director's position. We have some concern, even with the tight budget, we do have some concern that the athletic director brought up to us. And one of those concerns was that there is no real understanding in K through 8 in what needs to happen in athletics in those grade levels. There's no communication about what should be taught and when, and so there is a difficulty in understanding what children should be doing. Mr. Kuziak also talked to us about the fact that he is actually expanding the offerings that we have here at the high school, and they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. And one of them is indoor tennis. Somewhere, some tavern is missing a couple of ping pong tables, but he's got some ping pong tables. But he's just brought forward a whole cornucopia of different types of activities that we can have with our youngsters. So there needs to be some coordination, Your Honor, about what happens in K through 12, and currently we don't have that. So the second part of what we discussed was the fact that the athletic director is also the department head. And there may be some need, because we have so many requirements that the department head must fulfill, there may be some need to actually separate those two positions. We did have, Your Honor, two separate positions, the department head and the head of athletics, but for some budgetary constraints, we brought those two positions into one position. I think the athletic subcommittee, again, would like to look at what that would mean and what it would cost to separate those two positions. Madam Superintendent did come up with some interesting ways of being able to afford if we did split the two positions, being able to afford the second position. So she did discuss that with us. Mr. Kuziak actually also talked to us about ways of making money with our high school that I don't think we've ever thought of before. And one of those was to focus on the MIAA, which is the Mass Interscholastic Athletic Association, using the high school as an event place. Which actually brings money into the high school. Yes, we do have to pay for custodians, but when we have large events, Your Honor, you could have an upwards of, 1,000 to 2,000 people who are coming through the gate. So I thought that was a very interesting idea that Mr. Kuziak brought up. The motion by Mr. Leahy, seconded by Mr. Conway, is to direct the superintendent and the headmaster to prepare a draft of the two positions, the director of athletics and the chairperson of physical education and health. That did pass unanimously, and to identify sources of revenue and/or reductions that will offset some of the estimated $50,000 cost of restoring the PE and health chair position. It was voted 3-0 to recommend to this committee that we in fact ask the superintendent to begin that process. The meeting adjourned at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Madam Superintendent, go ahead.
As a follow-up, if I could just inform the committee that we hope to have the job descriptions ready for the February 20th school committee meeting under permission to post, so that you'd be able to take action that evening, and then we'd be able to move forward with the posting of those positions. And we anticipate having the information about how we could make it a cost-neutral proposal.
And maybe the athletic subcommittee will meet right before the meeting to take a look at those, see what they look like, so that we can speak to the committee conscientiously. Thank you.
So that, Ms.
I didn't mean to interrupt if you were gonna.
Go ahead.
I just had I just want to be clear. So the subcommittee recommended getting a draft
Right.
of what these two positions will be, and we're going to post? I don't understand.
No, through Your Honor, to my colleague, Ms. Martin, we're going to look at the draft.
Okay.
And we're going to decide whether or not this committee wants to move forward with doing the two separate postings, or moving forward with with the one posting, which is the athletic director.
Could I just make one recommendation? And I was not at this meeting, so I don't have an opinion, to be honest with you, one way or the other. But I am concerned that we'd be making this decision outside the context of next year's budget. I mean, we're just coming up on budget season right now. Is it something that we might want to wait until we can look at this in the overall picture of what 2008, 2009 is going to look like? I mean, because I don't think we can make this decision right now in the current environment, making a decision to, add a position in this area when we don't know where we might have to make other cuts in other areas. I mean, this could be, I think, to look at this as a singular thing, I think we'd be better served if we can wait and look at it in the big picture.
Could we do this, accept the report as a report of progress, place it on file, wait for the superintendent to come back with a recommendation and what the cost factor could be? I think we're talking about two different things now, right?
Well, what we're talking about, Your Honor, is we definitely have to post for the position of athletic director, because Mr. Krzyjak
Right.
is in that position only as an acting person. Now, we can keep him there acting for a number of years, which is what we have done, but I don't know if that is his preference. But we certainly should absolutely take a look at this in terms of our budget. My only concern is how long Mr. Krzyjak will remain in that acting role, and when we need to actually post that job. That's my concern, too.
Maybe I should rephrase that, adopt the recommendation
Okay.
brought forward by the subcommittee and place it on file, and we'll take a vote on that.
Well, if we place it on file,
Well, there has to be something for
right,
the
are we
superintendent
going to direct the superintendent to come back with us with a report? That is on the two positions, is that
Mr. Leary?
correct?
Yes.
Just real quick, I think it maybe might be of help is what you were saying, if I'm catching it right, is you're looking for a draft anyway, and you're going to re-meet again.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about it again on the 20th or 21st. So really, going forward right now is kind of, I would support going forward right now, because you're waiting for additional information anyway. We're going to take another look at it on the 20th, and we can go from that point forward.
We still want to adopt the recommendation.
Yes,
so we can go
absolutely.
forward.
Yeah.
So adopt the recommendation brought forward by the subcommittee and bring it forward to the superintendent. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I
Motion
don't
carries.
have a motion though from first and second. I need some. Okay, so you want to make it by Mr. Leahy and seconded by Mr. Conway? All right.
Any other discussion? Mr.
Sure,
Leahy?
I just want to make a quick comment that I didn't want to leave our previous AD out, Mr. Martin. He did do a lot of work also with trying to utilize Colley Stadium, Martin Field, in the high school too, so I didn't want to let that go without saying that. Thank you.
Okay. The next minutes that we're going to accept, Personnel Subcommittee, and by Ms. Martin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, this evening, we're really only approving the written minutes we had already reported out at the special meeting of the school committee last week. So tonight is really just a matter of approving the minutes as filed with, by the clerk.
Motion to accept the minutes of the Personnel Subcommittee by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Conway. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are accepted and placed on file. And before I move on, I want to compliment Ms. Martin and the Personnel Subcommittee. You did an excellent job. An excellent job. It was a marathon meeting, but I want to applaud everyone who attended that meeting. You did a great job. The third report is the Finance Subcommittee report by Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. The subcommittee met just this past week. In attendance were John Leahy and Committeewoman member Jackie Doherty. We took a look at the FY08 second quarter financial report, and right currently we're spending within our means at this point, both from the personal standpoint and the non-personal expenditures. So that's good. And in fact, we're showing some hopeful opportunity going forward for some savings, but there's nothing at this point that we can actually predict. We asked Mr. Lang to provide us a current review of the employee health insurance plan participation. As many of you will recall, that the committee and the UTL and other unions had negotiated, in addition to the master medical, we added the PPOs and the HMOs to the portfolio. And we had a considerable amount of employees from a variety of different unions. UTL is one positive, where we had about 30%, a little over 30% members switch to either the PPO or the HMO. Currently, as we look at the budget, there was approximately $525,000 in savings because of some of these adjustments by our employees. What we've learned at this point is the $500,000 plus in savings will be credited to next year's insurance allocation. What we don't know, however, is how much that actual insurance allocation would be. And I think we'll start learning those numbers. The city won't learn those numbers, I believe, till sometime at the end of March. Being in the insurance industry myself, I can tell you they're not going to go down. And obviously, I think everybody knows that anyway. We're kind of, right now it's very fluid. It's not something you can say it's going to be 10%, 12%. If you were to guess, and it would be quickly just a guess, like what we budgeted last year, 12%, you're talking, even with the $500,000 savings, you're talking close to $700,000 in increases in addition to what we're already budgeted for. Again, that's clearly a guess. This is very fluid. The city hasn't even received the report from our insurance experts, Cook and Company, and then at that point they haven't had a chance to question or sharpen their pencils. But be assured, you're going to have some type of an increase. The good part is, because of our negotiations, because of our employees, our own staff, we're going to have over $500,000 reduced from whatever number we have. So that's, at least we can say we've worked together as a team, both the employer and the employee, to achieve this savings, and hopefully the health care is of benefit to everybody. And hopefully this, as the word grows, we'll have continued savings from folks moving to the PPOs or the HMOs. Mr. Lang also provided, I guess, the basic framework of what the budget calendar will be for this year in terms of when the superintendent will formally present the budget to the school committee, when the school committee will be tentatively beginning their deliberations, and then sitting down with the city council for final approvals. Mr. Lang will begin sitting down with each and every principal in the system. Sometime, I believe, Mr. Lang, it would be actually the next couple of weeks. I guess he'll be sitting down to start discussing and formulating a budget and working with the superintendent to see exactly what our needs are at this point. I'd be remiss to say that this is going to be an easy budget year. It's going to be a very challenging budget year. We were also provided the governor's budget, which was in the press. The governor's budget provided for a 1.7% increase in Chapter 70 funding, which is approximately $2,012,000 in actual dollars. Unfortunately, we share that with some of the charter schools in the area. So the actual Chapter 70 increase in the governor's budget is $975,000, rounded to $1 million. As we're looking as of today, and I want to stress as of today, we're looking at increases in a range of between $3.5 to $4 million. Again, this is a very fluid and changing in number in terms of what our current costs would be. The changes involve not only the employees' raises, the health insurance with the aforementioned health insurance, which I just discussed, but also looking at what our utilities are, what our long-term substitutes accounts would be at the end of the year. So we really don't have a finite number today as how much we're actually going to owe. We do know that it's going to probably exceed somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million. We're hoping, obviously, to get to the $2.5 million. The superintendent has already met with the Varnum School, which I think it's already been in the press, and we've all received discussions from the superintendent regarding that. I believe the superintendent will be making a recommendation to close the Varnum School, and I'll let the superintendent expand upon that right now if you'd like. I don't know if you want to talk about that now or...
Let's finish your report.
Okay. I think that's something I think at this point, obviously, there's potential savings there. The committee, I believe, at that point will be voting at the first meeting in March to discuss that as a cost savings measure. I believe the committee members will all have a lot more to say regarding that. I think it's going to be a challenging year. The finance subcommittee will be meeting tentatively, I think it's March 3rd, not only to discuss the Varnum School, but also starting to take a look at the frameworks that Mr. Lang is beginning to review with each and every school system. In saying that, I think obviously our state legislators have worked very hard. They're being pressed. It's a tight revenue year. We're going to all do our best. I know that many members have already been in touch with our legislators directly, personally, and I know that our folks have come back to us, our state delegation has come back to us and said they're going to do our best to see if they can move the governor's number. But again, you got to stress that this is something that it's going to be very challenging. So we're going to need, as we said earlier, to look at everything in our budget and really we'll put our money where the value is. In closing, two quick things. In closing, one, I spoke with Rodney Elliott, the Councilor Rodney Elliott from the Finance Subcommittee of the I was going to say the high school, the Finance Subcommittee of the City Council. At some point, we'll probably be having a joint meeting between the Finance Committees, probably in April, once we have more of an idea what the city's facing as well as what we're facing. The committee also met, in closing, regarding surveillance cameras at the Malloy Alternative School. Again, as you know, the alternative school is where we have a lot of our discipline issues, where we put them for hopefully an assistance before we have to remove them from the system. We do not have surveillance cameras at the school at this point in time. We know we had a lot of fire alarm breaks, and the fire department had to spend an inordinate amount of cost and time investigating who actually pulled the fire alarm. So this is an area I think that, an area that the committee felt presenting this to the full committee is advantageous from a cost standpoint. Motion made by Jackie Doherty and seconded by John Leahy to recommend to the full school committee authorization of expenditures up to $75,000 for the purchase and installation of video surveillance system at the Malloy Alternative School. It was approved 3-0, and I guess I'm looking for a motion. I make that in form of a motion for approval.
Okay. Second.
Motion to, what are you looking for approval?
Approval to spend up to $75,000 to install surveillance cameras at the Malloy Alternative School.
Motion to support the expenditure of $75,000 at the Malloy School? Malloy School, seconded by Ms. Dodd. Let's take a roll call vote now.
Ms. Fattacante?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Why don't we make a motion to accept the entire minutes brought forward Mr. Leary by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Fattacante. All in favor, signify by saying aye. The minutes will be placed on file. We don't have the discipline subcommittee. That's not before us. Is it before us tonight? Okay, Mr. Conway?
Yes, we had, actually, we had a meeting last night, and in attendance, we had myself and Ms. Fattacante, and additional school committee members present, Mr. Leary and Ms. Martin, and school department personnel present, Dr. Carla Brooks-Bear, and also Assistant Superintendent Ann Murphy. We discussed, Assistant Superintendent Murphy brought forward the review of the student handbooks from pre-K through 8, and also the 9 through 12. And it's our understanding that they are updating the pre-K through 8 because it's, I believe the last time it was updated was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Unlike the high school updates the handbook each and every year. Also discussed, and by the way, that's supposed to be accomplished by April, I believe, right? Thank you. And also discussed were infractions of misbehavior and to clarify the offenses. I think there was a little bit of confusion with that, and I think we need some clarification. Also, the importance of school culture and preventative measures as a deterrent to misbehavior. We discussed that. And also, there was a concern by a number of teachers with the inconsistency of discipline throughout the school system. I think especially when we're talking about the 5 through 8 schools. There was also, we discussed the fact that there should be discretions, there should be a discretion of the principal's discipline as far as from one discipline from one principal to another, to be able to give leeway in how they handle their behavior. Also, we talked about the professional development for the building administrators and to make sure that we have consistency in our discipline. The procedures and guidelines for principals in conducting expulsion hearings was also a topic. There was a motion by Ms. Fattacante and second by myself to recommend to the committee as a whole to accept this report as a report of progress.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. All in favor of accepting the report, place it on file? Thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Through you to the chair, I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but I was wondering, did any discussion come up about in-house suspension at the high school? Mr. Conway?
I
Through the mayor to you?
don't believe so.
Okay. I was wondering, would that, what's going to come out of this report then? Just the adjustment on the handbooks then?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I was wondering if I could make a motion that next time the discipline committee meets, could we just get an update on what procedures happen at in-house suspension at the high school? Are we utilizing it to its best?
You bring in a motion forward, Mr. Leahy?
Yeah, can I?
Seconded.
First, he needs to
Motion to
suspend.
suspend.
all right, sorry.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Martin.
Okay.
Bring your motion forward.
Just make a motion that the next time the discipline subcommittee meets, that we make sure that we're utilizing the in-house suspension at the high school to its fullest capacity.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. The motion
Aye.
passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Conway, your report on the community partnerships?
Yes, last night we also met in the Community Partnerships Subcommittee meeting, and in attendance, the members, Ms. Faticante and Ms. Martin, and also present was School Committee member James Leary. School Department personnel in attendance was Dr. Carla Brooks-Bayer, Superintendent of Schools, Jay Lang, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, Dennis Kruziak, who was the interim athletic director at the high school. We had a number of issues on the agenda. We asked for a report on a district-wide partnership relating to professional development from the superintendent, and we discussed the Fitchburg State program and the Lowell program. And we also talked about the fact that we need to reach out to University of Massachusetts and also Middlesex Community College, especially in light of the fact that we will probably be running into some financial problems, as has been noted a number of times tonight, and that we need to utilize the knowledge base that is available at these two institutions. The second topic of conversation was the status of the Laptops Low program. That's a program that combated attendance issues for 12th graders and also increased college acceptance. It's been successful in the last 3 years, and it's my understanding from the my understanding from the headmaster that program will continue, and we will be having a meeting at the high school tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the headmaster's conference room with the original subcommittee from the laptops program. Also, we had a report from Mr. Kruziak, which I think is just mentioned by Ms. Faticante, on the Wilson tennis program, which I thought was an excellent idea. It gives some diversity to our sports program at the high school, which I think is definitely needed. I would like to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, if the superintendent could send a letter of thank you to the appropriate individuals at the USTA organization, and I'm sure that we can get that. I'm sure the superintendent can get that information from Mr. Kruziak. Also, we talked about the partnership with Boston College, and I want to note individuals from that. Mr. Kruziak, who was the intern athletic director, Margot Plotsky from the PE program at Lowell High School, Chief Jakes from the ROTC program, Michelle Meehan from Boys and Girls Club, and also Jay Lang, the assistant superintendent. And this particular program was a a partnership with Boston College, and we were able to get, with the collaborative effort of these individuals, approximately $70,000 worth of equipment that would be coming into the Lowell school system. And as we have divided that up with equipment going to Lowell High School, the Malloy Alternative School, the Lowell High School ROTC program, the Lowell Boys and Girls Club, and also the UTEC organization. And I think it was a great partnership. It's also my understanding that in 2 years from now, we might be able to get some more equipment from Boston College. So once again, I would ask through you, Mr. Mayor, if the superintendent would also send a wonderful thanks to Boston College for their generosity. And we had a motion to adjourn at 9:07 by Mr. Faticani and second by Ms. Martin.
Thank you. I just want to comment that all these reports are excellent. I just want to let everyone know that everything is here, the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. Very thorough report. And at this point in time, motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. Take that report and place it on file. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. The report has been accepted and placed on file. Are there any other minutes, subcommittee reports, or anything to discuss?
Now it's the reports of the superintendent.
Okay, we're going to move on with the agenda.
Reports of the superintendent.
Reports of the superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Caulfield. The first report has to do with the Universal Breakfast Program. That is a program that's available to elementary schools with high percentages of youngsters eligible for free and reduced lunch. And it is an effort by the state to ensure good nutrition for youngsters when they arrive in school, so that they are really are ready to learn. And I'm very pleased to announce that the McAuliffe School has become the 4th elementary school in Lowell to earn the School Breakfast Excellence Award from Project Bread, which is a $1,000 prize for the school when it achieves a participation percentage of 80% or better. And the McAuliffe has set so far our record. It has over 90% at several consecutive weeks. So what we're doing, the Lincoln, the Varnum, and the Washington were prior award winners, and what we're doing is pooling our knowledge and our learning as each of these schools develops its way for increasing participation by youngsters. We're pooling that information so that we can share that with other schools, so that we can get as many of our schools actively involved in the Universal Breakfast Program. So I wanted to congratulate the McAuliffe School.
Any discussion on the report?
Approval, Your Honor?
Move for approval by
And,
Ms.
accept the
Faticani. I
report.
think we should take a
Place on
roll
file.
call on this because there's $1,000 a gift here. But, and also, Madam Superintendent, could we also send them a great thank you for their generosity and their help? Roll call?
I need a second on Ms. Faticani move.
Second.
Okay.
Roll call by Ms. Faticani, seconded by Mr.
Okay.
Collins.
Ms. Faticante?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
The second report is a report prepared by Assistant Superintendent Mulligan, outlining some of the context for our teacher recruitment efforts. As she points out in her report, since the 2004-2005 school year, 251 teachers in Lowell have retired, and creating a number of vacancies that have required a more aggressive effort at identifying potential applicants. And she's laid out a schedule of some of the recruitment fairs that staff will be participating in. Particularly notable is the Thursday after February vacation, February 28th, will be the 4th Merrimack Valley Job Fair. Assistant Superintendent Mulligan was one of the founders of this and has secured commitment on the part of 24 school districts to come to Lowell Memorial Auditorium, where this fair is hosted. Last year, more than 900 prospective teachers met with Lowell Public School administrators who staffed the Lowell Public School booth. Of those 900, ultimately 52 teachers that were identified at the recruitment fair were hired and are teaching in the Lowell Public Schools in the 2007-2008 school year. So it has proven to be a very effective source of initial screening and source of applicants for us. We know that the budget for the coming year will be challenging, but we know that we know that no matter how challenging the budget, there will be teaching vacancies the following year in hard-to-fill positions and in some surprising positions that come open. So we will be just as aggressive and assertive this spring as we have been in the last couple of springs, so that we can put Lowell in the position of having the largest applicant pool that we can possibly have, so that we can choose the strongest, most able teachers for our kids. So I wanted to thank Assistant Superintendent Mulligan for this work.
Accept the reporter's report of progress by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Fattacani. All in favor, signify by saying aye. The report has been accepted and placed on file.
The third report this evening is a report compiled by Assistant Superintendent Murphy in response to a motion from a November school committee meeting in which we were asked to provide a report that identifies all outside groups that are involved with the district by school, including information on the students served, the nature and the time commitments of each program, and the contact person coordinating it. And you can see a quite complete report by school. Elementary and middle schools are particularly full, and I think the high school, with so many different partnerships, there's less information here for the high school provided by administrators there. But the elementary and middle school, I think, are partnerships that in many ways are much less well known to the community and to the school committee. So we hope this provides for you a picture of the rich and diverse opportunities that are made available to our staff and our students through an extensive network of community partnerships. Welcome any questions or requests for follow-up.
Thank you. I'd like to first off thank the superintendent and her staff, and especially I think Special Programs Coordinator Terry Garish, because this is a huge effort. And I knew we had a lot of outside communities involved with our schools, but I had no idea that it was this extensive 22-page report. And I just wanted to inform the committee that part of the initiative, why I asked for this information, is I've been involved with the Mary Bacigalupo Forum, and we have a subcommittee as part of that group that looks at community partnerships with our schools and how we might do more with working with our partners out in the community to work with our students. So this is a good foundation for that committee, and I will be sharing that information with the subcommittee as we go forward in looking at our programs. And again, as we've talked about quite a bit tonight, with a tight budget, if we can have programs and services helping our students that do not require funding, that becomes more and more helpful as we go forward. So thank you for that report. And
accept the reporter's report of progress by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. All in favor, signify by saying aye. The report has been accepted.
I think the superintendent would like to speak.
I just did want to comment that one of the features of it when I looked through it that I felt excited about and see opportunities for expansion is in the area of community service projects. And you can see a lot of at elementary schools and middle schools where there are clearly some long-standing partnerships that have been developed where our students learn from a young age the power of community service and the power of giving and generosity. And I hope that we're going to be able to use this resource to share some information across schools. And there may be ways that we can enrich opportunities for more youngsters in more of the schools by sharing this information across schools. So it's a very helpful report to us to have prepared as well.
Okay, can we continue with those reports?
Yes, the final report from this evening is an announcement of the first I to the Third Power Conference. And I to the third power is a conference for teachers of mathematics and science in Lowell by teachers. I to the third power here means intensive immersion institutes. And we have 150 teachers who have taken together various of our science and math content institutes as professional development over the last couple of years. And as a way to both celebrate their engagement, but also to share the knowledge that they have gained, we are attempting a first ever math and science conference being held at the Doubletree Hotel March 12th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., in which teachers will be sharing much of what they've learned, sharing strategies for instruction that they've learned, strategies for teaching complicated math and science concepts to youngsters in more effective ways. And we're hoping to that this will, as I said, be both a celebration. It's a grassroots effort by teachers. Celebrate their work and also share their work. And we are hopeful that participants will gain important new insights into teaching and learning in mathematics and science. And committee members are invited.
Any further discussion? Accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Fattacani. All in favor signify by saying aye. The report has been accepted and placed on file. Moving on to new business.
Nothing. Convention conference is next. There's nothing. on the
Convention
business.
conference request?
I think we can go right to the conventions and conference requests.
Okay.
Move that we take the conferences all together, Your Honor, that we...
That's fine with me. Moved, we take all conferences together by Ms. Dougherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. Thank you.
There has to be a roll call on it.
A roll call. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Ms. Fattacante?
Yes?
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved. This has to be, okay. This has to be. Don't forget, yeah, 'cause that's the money. You have to hire.
Communications and professional personnel.
Move approval, Your Honor, professional personnel?
Move for approval by Ms. Fattacani, seconded by Ms. Martin. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
Has to be a roll call.
roll call?
Okay. Ms. Fattacante?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Any other discussions on the agenda?
Motion to adjourn, Your Honor.
Before we leave, I just have a few things to say. I told the subcommittee earlier in the mayor's reception room, I had the pleasure of being mirrored image, shadowed last Thursday or Friday by Alejandro Zayas, a student at Lowell High School. And we had a great day together, and took him to lunch. And he said, Mr. Mayor, I've learned a lot from you today. I says, no, I've learned a great deal from you. What a great, great kid, 17 years old. He has a great future ahead of him. He moved here from Manhattan in November. He loves Lowell High School, he loves the city. What an excellent student and a representative of Lowell High School. So, Madam Superintendent, could you relay that message to the teacher at Lowell High School and let it be known that I appreciated his efforts. I have one last question to bring forward. I understand the Barnum School is going to be closed with a savings of $1 million or whatever. Madam Superintendent, where are those 200 students going to be housed, or what school are they going to?
I'll be making the formal recommendation at the first meeting in March. We believe that there should be room in schools across the city in their home school district, and also with a concentration at the Greenalge and the McAuliffe schools, which are the two schools nearest to the Varnum. And we believe that we'll be able to place students in ways that, while it will increase class size somewhat at the elementary level, it will not be an exceedingly large increase across the city. And we'll do this closing that I'm recommending is a little premature. We were hoping to be able to do it when we opened a new Sapatsaris elementary school. But we have known that enrollment is shaping out at the elementary level, we have 3 small elementary schools. We have the Varnum, the Moody, and the Washington. And our expectation was that we would need 1 new elementary school, the new Sapatsaris school, that would house the equivalent of 2 of those small schools, and that we would eventually be able to absorb the population of 1 of the schools. So we're doing it prematurely. So we'll have some bubbles of classes over the next 2 years until enrollment smooths out. But then when we build the Sapatsaris school, we'll be able to then close the Moody and the Washington schools as regular elementary schools. So this is again making it a little premature. But my recommendation is, given the very, very tight budget, that we need to make this squeeze a little early because of the large savings that will accrue. And I'll be bringing details about, as we're working on some transportation implications, we'll be bringing those to the transportation subcommittee, and as well as there'll be some staffing implications, because we'll want to move the youngsters who are in the newcomer English language learner program who are at the Varna. We'll want to move as many of them together as we can, and our plan is to move them to the Greenalge. And so we're working on the staffing implications at the Greenalge. So there's a few details to work out before I bring the full recommendation to the committee. But I thought it was important because February 1st is the date in which we're obligated under our contract with the UTL to notify all staff of teaching vacancies for the following year. And we wanted to not let too much time go by before we indicated that I'd be making this recommendation, so that people have full information and don't start thinking that they can wind up with a particular open position when in fact that's going to have to be reserved for teachers who were displaced from the Varnum School. So that's the reason for an early February announcement of my recommendation, but the details need to be brought to you in early March.
Madam Superintendent, just one last question. By transferring these 200 students to other schools, that going to burden those other schools with overcrowding, or the classrooms going to be suitable in size? Would there be a problem there?
It is not ideal to be making this move now. It's not ideal. We wish we could wait until we had a little bit more smoothing out of enrollment at the elementary level and had the Sapatsaris school to move youngsters into. But we should be able to stay pretty much within our class size guidelines for elementary level. What it will mean is that there'll be a little bit less choice for families, because our elementary schools will be at very close to 100% occupancy, and that means just fewer options for choices for families. So I anticipate that will be one impact.
I would imagine the students at the Varnum School will be happy knowing they're going to go to a school with an auditorium, a cafeteria, and gymnasium. And I, for one, am going to see if we can get that Sapatsaris school built. It's needed desperately. So, nothing else to discuss? Motion to adjourn by Ms. Dougherty, seconded by Mr. Conway. Thank you for an excellent meeting. And before we leave, I want to thank Susan Mulligan for doing an outstanding job getting in touch with the screening committee, and Murphy and Jay Lang. So thank you very much for your help. Good night.